guess it was more of the lack of reaction after, you know, weeks later, months later, a year later. Yeah. It was, I mean, to me, and who knows, maybe they were doing something behind the scenes that nobody knew about. I don't know. But there just didn't seem to be, and everybody handles things in a different way, they do, but thinking back, other than, like, you know, our local news channels being there, the day of, I'd say maybe the first week she disappeared, there was a lot of activity as far as news channels. After that, not much of anything. You know, you didn't really hear much of anything about it. It was almost, you know, kind of dismissed, I think, to the point where they went with the story, the baby's in the river. You know, as little as she was, they're probably never going to find anything. And it kind of just, as far as the police were concerned, it kind of just ended with that.
So there's one story that's changed a few times on whether anyone actually saw Melissa that morning. Did you ever hear anything about someone seeing a woman holding Melissa walking down the street? No. No, you never heard that? Okay.
Nope.
There's just a few different people have mentioned that and then said no, that didn't happen. So I was just kind of like,
yeah, I never heard any.
Is it a rumor or?
Yeah, I never heard anything about that at all. No,
okay.
Just the you know, that Wanda, you know, supposedly took Melissa downstairs to play with her while Becky smoked a cigarette. And I never even heard the cigarette story until the radio. I had never, like, for it to be some sort of basis of time.
What was the story you heard?
Well, I mean, that was the first time I ever really heard it mentioned that Wanda wasn't really to, you know, kind of be trusted with children alone. I mean, she took care of her own baby. You know, I mean, in listening to that, it almost made me think, like, well, you know, she wouldn't allow Wanda alone with the baby. You know, Wanda just took it upon herself to take this baby outside. Wouldn't she even be scared to do that if she's never even been allowed to be alone with the baby? You know, I mean, I don't know. It just, and then the mention of there being jealousy, because supposedly Michael was paying more attention to Melissa than to baby Jimmy. That almost makes it sound like Wanda was intelligent enough to almost premeditate this. Yeah. How would somebody with her IQ even have that ability? I mean, to orchestrate something like that. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, so she somehow made plans to, you know, have somebody come in a car and take this baby, or somehow she made it all the way down to the river and put the baby in the river and made it back in less than 10 minutes. I mean, you got to admit, like, she was pretty good at committing a crime for somebody of her, you know.
Yeah. Do you think she was maybe, like, coached into doing something, or do you think she maybe was totally innocent in it?
Yeah.
You think she's innocent?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I don't know what happened. I don't think that she did anything to cause harm to that baby. I don't think she did. I mean, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up at all. I mean, if she did do something, what did she do? How did she do it? How did she do it in the length of time that she did? If that time frame was, I mean, maybe that's what makes, maybe she really did do something with the baby, but there's no way that it was done in 10 minutes. Yeah. She had to have been gone for at least 45 minutes. Maybe that part doesn't want to be admitted, that you know, basically allowed your child to be with someone who is, you know, I don't want to say mentally retarded, but alone for that long, and now you're being told the baby's gone. I don't know. I mean, but if the time frame isn't correct, then that could have potentially changed everything in the police investigation. Yeah. You know, I don't, realistically, I don't know how if the police believe that that baby really was put in the river, and if she told the police that same timeline back then, that she was still smoking a cigarette that she had lit when Wanda took Melissa downstairs, then all of that had to have happened. I mean, I smoke 100s, and in under 10 minutes you're done with one. Probably more like 6 or 7 minutes. Yeah. You know, so just even think of the point, how long it would have taken her just to, it wasn't warm outside, so she would have had to have bundled the baby up. She would have had to have come downstairs, made her way all the way out the back door, because she couldn't go out the front door. And then if she did bring her down the river, she would have had to, unless she had someone outside waiting, which I don't think Wanda knew anybody that she could pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I'm planning on doing something with this baby. I mean, who's going to help you in something like that? Yeah. You know? So if she was on foot and did put Melissa in the river, there's no way that it could have been done. Not even in less than probably a half an hour. So that part throws me off. I didn't know that was the time, that was the supposed time frame though, until the more up to date interview. I don't recall that from back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would have taken her walking, even walking from, if she went out that back door, came to Linda's house, that would have probably taken walking probably a good 3 to 4 minutes. And then for them to walk back to Becky's house, now you're assuming that she did nothing in between. Yeah. And then another, 2 or 3 minutes for her, Jesse and Wanda to go back to Becky's house. And that's not counting the time that Wanda spent with us telling us that Melissa had been taken. So even if she didn't do any, even if Melissa never disappeared and she was simply just walking to Linda's house that day, had the conversation she did, and then walked back to Becky's, it would have still probably been a good 10, 12, 15 minutes. Yeah. So for her to have been able to actually, I mean, I don't want to say dispose of a baby, but somehow get rid of this baby. I mean, you would think there'd be either somebody was helping her, somebody helped her in some way, or the time is totally off. Because if she did make her way down that river and back, I know that, I mean, I moved on Lamberton Street in 1978, and the river, like the way you see it now, is not at all how it looked 26 years ago. There was no tunnel. I mean, there was no highway. It was just a street. And wherever you lived on Lamberton Street, well, not, of course, Becky and them lived a little bit beyond the river, let's say. Mm-hmm. But the majority of Lamberton Street, until you get to Cash Street, which Cash Street, when you went there, if you noticed, there was a liquor store on the corner. Mm-hmm. Did you notice that? Yeah. Okay, that's Cass and Lamberton right there. Well, heading not toward Becky and Rob's, but heading in the other, I'm not good with direction as far as south, east, west, or north, but heading away from Becky and Rob's house the other way on Lamberton Street. Almost all of those houses, if you were to stand on your porch, you could view the river from your front porch. Mm-hmm. Unlike once you get, past that, you can't. And another thing that I guess one of the questions that I had for the radio interviewer was, in that interview, Becky specifically states, whenever Wanda's story came out about, okay, she was no longer taken by a black man, it was no longer anybody in a car, she put her in the water. And when Becky said, what water? What are you talking about? And she says, oh, the river. And Becky says, river? What river? I didn't know there was a river around here. Later on in the interview, she says they went swimming in the river. Mm-hmm. So, which was it? So Wanda somehow knew about this river, but you had no knowledge about the river. how would Wanda have even known where the river was unless she went with either Becky, Rob, Earl. I don't think she went and walked around the neighborhood, by herself. And I think anybody that lived on Lamberton Street, you would know the Delaware River is there. I mean, if you've ever even driven around, there's no way you wouldn't know that river was there because you can see it right from the roadway. Yeah. It wasn't blocked like now. Maybe it'd be a little more hidden away, but then there would be no way you wouldn't know the river was there. Back then, like if you notice now, they put the tunnel in. There's that it used to be Trenton Thunder. Well, it's Trenton Thunder, but now I think it's called Arm and Hammer Park or something like that. But that wasn't there. I mean, when Melissa disappeared, it was just a riverbank, hills, grass. There was nothing on the side of the street where the river was. It was just river. There was nothing blocking it from any of the houses or anything like that. So I don't know how. I mean, even if you only lived there for a couple of days. I mean, she mentioned in the interview as well that she had left both kids with Wanda just once when she ran to go pick up the guys from work. Mm-hmm. And even just in your daily driving, you would have known there was a river there. I mean, and she obviously knew the river was there because then later on she says that they had went swimming in the river. So that kind of makes you, I mean, it's just inconsistencies, it seems like. Yeah. And who knows, maybe it's just so many years has passed and she really doesn't remember. Maybe she doesn't remember how the events went. Maybe she was in, her state of mind wasn't right. Maybe she just wasn't thinking clearly, and now thinking back, and, I don't know. But there are questions that I had for that, for the interviewer, questions that I would have asked, like, okay, you just said that you didn't know about this river, but now 15 minutes into the interview you're saying that you were swimming in the river. So you had to have known there was a river there.
Yeah.